Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Happy Wednesday night. We appreciate you being here with us. If you have not been here before, please make sure to like this video. It helps people to find us. And subscribe to Unplanned Downtime. Very excited tonight to welcome back a Park Center regular and one of my favorite people, Allison. How's it going?
Oh, you're one of my favorite people too, Rob. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming back. You and I did a review, a couple reviews. Pollyanna was one, which you made me basically watch Pollyanna. So, I mean, that's
Sorry.
and then also you and I did the Mouseketeers Go to Walt Disney World, which was one of the biggest views we've ever had on a video. And I gotta assume it's not because it was a train wreck, but because you were involved.
Thank you. I'd like to take credit, but I think it's just our chemistry is just so good.
Well, and so I reached back out to you and I said, hey, can we do one more? And you were like, okay, give me a list. I gave you a list, and then there was one that kind of stuck out for you. And so I need to say from the start that you were the one that picked 10 Things I Hate About You. And so I want to ask you, like, what does this mean to you, this movie? When did you see it, etc.?
Oh, gosh. So this movie came out when I was 14 years old. So it is really like peak, like cultural relevance for my formative years. And so for better or worse, this movie had a lot of influence. It was also the one thing when we had this big list of potential movies, I asked my husband, which one will you actually watch with me? And he was like, no question, hands down, 10 Things I Hate About You. And I was a little surprised. This is not his normal style movie. But that sealed the deal for me.
You're like, he'll watch it with me. Okay, we'll do it. Now I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I don't like when my wife and I would watch like dramas. I don't like dramas, but I'll watch them if I'm watching with somebody else. But I'm never going to choose that. I'm always going to choose something garbage like Family Guy or, Superstore for the 18th time. So, that's just the thing. So I get sometimes it's nicer to have somebody watching it with you, but that's funny. So I'm not going to ask you till the end, like what he thought of it. You could tell me what that was. But, so basically this movie came out in 1999. It ushered in the year 2000. So I kind of positioned it as a 90s movie because I feel like it still had that vibe of a 90s movie in it. But the thing that I didn't realize until I watched this, and don't hate me because I didn't know this, was that it was based loosely on the Taming of the Shrew, Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew. I didn't know that. Like, I had no clue. Like, where was I? What rock was I under? And then now looking back at it, it makes sense. There was a lot of Shakespeare references in it. One of the characters, like, calls himself William, and asks the lady out. So there's a lot of ties into it that I didn't actually see the first time that I saw this. So it was neat to go back and do that. So you already knew that.
And then, well, the 90s were a big time for Shakespeare, for whatever Shakespeare in Love won the Oscar for Best Film, I think, in like 98 or 97. And then like there were Romeo and Juliet with like Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio. That was big. And also the movie Clueless was based on Emma, which is not Shakespearean, but that's historical modernization of classic literature. So I guess it was just like, for whatever reason, a thing. But there's no question. There's no reason anyone should realize this is Shakespearean when you start watching it, because it starts with that like animated, like neon letters and like a Bare Naked Ladies song. And it's very 90s.
I mean, you got me whenever you start with the Bare Naked Ladies song. I mean, that's kind of my jam. But yeah, so like this is what you're talking about, is this weird, like the shaky, the shaky animation for this. But it
is distinctly 90s. That like, it's 99. I know it's almost 2000, but you don't see that in 2000 or 2001. Yeah. Like, that's 90s all the way.
There was a kind of an amazing cast. This was almost like a farm, like a school for people who would then go on to be famous. So we'll definitely talk about that later. But back to the Shakespeare thing. There was only you're ready. I love that you're so excited about this. So when I go back to look at it, Shakespeare, like there was only one character who had the same name, and that was Bianca. So the story is about kind of loosely about Bianca because she's the youngest daughter, and her dad won't let her date until her older sister Kat dates. But in the play, it's Kate. I'm like, why wouldn't you keep some of these things the same? But I think Bianca's the only name that's the same, right?
I think so. I haven't looked that up in a long time. It's been probably 20 years since I've seen Shaming of the Shrew or read it, so I don't remember.
In this we've got a very young Joseph Gordon-Levitt and
Yeah, as a
Allison
baby.
Janney and this little thing that she's writing, which is yeah disturbing.
Amazing.
Um,
Allison Janney's my favorite actress of all time.
really?
So, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and by the way, I don't know if we're getting there later, but this is a big year for her. In 1999, she did well, one of my favorite movies of all time is Drop Dead Gorgeous. That also came out this same year, and she's in that. Also, American Beauty, which she is also in, but you wouldn't notice because her character is so different
Hmm.
from this character and from Drop Dead Gorgeous. And it is the same year The West Wing premiered. So this is a
Which was her
really
big.
big year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she was a
really
busy
big year for
lady.
Allison Janney. Yeah, and I mean, since she's subsequently won an Oscar, so yeah, she's. I saw her in a Broadway musical like 15 years ago. She was in 9 to 5 on Broadway, and I waited outside like a lunatic for for her to come out to tell her that she was my favorite actress, and she stopped and she was like, "Huh, really?" Like she didn't believe me. Like she didn't normally hear that. I'm not sure it's like a normal thing for her to be someone's favorite actress, but she is the range of the characters that she plays just like blows me away. She's so insanely talented.
And she's famously tall. So here's a scene with her and Heath Ledger or Patrick, and there's some more of that funky the funky text. Um, yeah, famously tall though. Like Family Guy did a
Oh yeah.
bit again, referring back to Family Guy a bit where they were talking about Allison Janney getting out of a limo, and then they kind of pan up her legs, and it kind of never stops, and it keeps going up into the sky.
I
And
remember that.
it's
Yeah.
like but they're like, but Allison Janney has awards and we don't. Like they admit that in there. Like she's a good egg. David Krumholtz is you know what? Let's hold off on that. I want to talk about all these things, but I want to get through a couple things first. The fact that it's called 10 Things I Hate About You. There's that list or that poem that she does at the end, but I don't remember them actually that being a titular line at any point for them to say like her saying these are 10 things I hate about you. Did she do that or did I miss it?
Oh, I think you're exactly right. And I think like that was almost common at the time because there are so many movies that like she's all that and like they just have like a random you think that it like has they're almost they could be interchangeable. Like these titles could apply to any of these kinds of movies from around the same time.
Yeah, that's true. That Can't Buy Me Love or yeah, a lot of those that were she's all that. Yeah, that the names are just yeah, like you said, interchangeable. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, there must have been a book called 10 Things I Hate About You, which led me down to the no, it's just a taming of the shrew, and I was blown away. So the more you know. But so once this thing gets started, I mean, there's a lot of explanation in it as it starts to the point where you're kind of overwhelmed with them introducing characters to you and where they are and the rules that dad has and all that other stuff.
Are you overwhelmed or just whelmed?
Really, breaking out quotes already. It's very. My daughter said it's very quotable, and I know that there's some stuff on
Yes.
on TikTok like this line that she did about she's like. I like my Skechers, but I love my Prada backpack. So apparently that's a thing on TikTok that comes up all the time. But I guess again we're introduced to her school and her character and the other characters and the sister and the town and just everything happens so quickly to get us into the situation, which I'm not sure I've seen too much of that unless it's in a musical, like
Right.
Belle and the whole her walking through the town and everyone and introducing themselves and her talking about this poor provincial town and all that. It's like it's very quick. So this feels a little bit like a musical, which then could go back to it feeling like a play, which would again take me to the shrew.
Yeah, that's how you like establish the establishing shots are very it is like the whole thing. I spent a lot of time being like, "Oh, I wonder, let's play the game of how much is that home worth in 2022 dollars?"
Very good. So one of the first things we see is that they're in an English class, and which again I think kind of goes back to the whole idea of it being you know, Shakespearean because the English teacher is, you know, quoting Shakespeare, etc. But I have a question for you right off the bat. It feels like Patrick at this point is kind of a loser. Like he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would be in a high level high school English class. But Kat seems like the kind of person who would. And then there's Joey, and then like the Rastafarian guys, and I'm just like, I mean, we were talking about education right before you came on. Don't you think
That's
that
right.
these people would have been broken out a little bit more? She seems like the kind of person that would have been put in, I don't know, like an advanced class. Am I just making stuff up
This
now?
is this is my analysis of this. Okay, because you look at those school grounds, this is no public school. This is some kind of elite private education that, and these kids are obviously very wealthy. He's paying what in, I'd use the inflation calculator, but like in 2022 dollars is $130 a date for this guy to take, for Heath Ledger to take Kat out on dates. These kids like obviously have money, the cars they drive, the homes that they live in, and the school grounds, which are bananas. And so I think what we're dealing with here is just like the world of elite private high school education. So it's more akin to Clueless, where you see all of the people in the very same debate class, right? But it's still like the 90s, so it's, I don't know if the kind of competition that exists now.
Right.
And education was really there, but this is not like the normal John Hughes like high school for sure.
Oh, you mean like they didn't have cars like this and the castles basically that they went to school
Yeah,
in? I mean, that was the
they
thing.
go to school in a castle.
Again, my daughter was watching it and she was like, "Is that a castle or is that a school?" I'm not really sure. Yeah, it is kind of crazy to think that we're pretending that that's a school or whatever. But Joey's car, obviously his pride and joy. But yeah, it is weird to me, trying to like place any of this, like you're saying, like the school, the class layout. Like, I guess I'm getting too granular in it, but I mean, deep in the plus. That's what we do. The next thing is that when we're meeting the characters, we meet Michael, and Michael is played by David Krumholtz, and
Yeah, he's in everything.
he is in everything. And I feel like Disney must have had him on retainer for as many Disney things as he was in. But when he's there, he's going through the school and he's teaching. Again, it's that teaching him all, like teaching all of us. Here's how this school works. You know, there's the Rastafarian guys, and then there's the debate club, and there's these people and those people, and you
Yeah,
want to
he
stay away
says
from the
yuppie greed
jocks.
is back, which is one of my favorite lines.
Yeah, and when I saw his name in the credits, I was like, I know him, but I don't know who I'm thinking of. And then when he popped up, I was like, yeah, that's him, because he's in the Santa Claus. I mean, that's the first thing I think of when I think of him, is that he was in, he was Bernard in the Santa Claus, and then he always looks like I don't know how old he is. So
Yes.
when I first saw him, by the way, is this where you were talking about the homes? Because good Lord, like these
Yes, that's
houses and
exactly
this
right.
street and that view, yeah,
Like I'm sure these homes were worth like a pretty penny in 1999, but 23 years later, it's like I can't even imagine.
yeah, it's insane.
Because this is also the Seattle area, so this is pre Facebook in Seattle and pre like the internet exploding. So yeah, these homes are worth a lot now.
By the way, in chat, Michael Sullivan said, so in inflation, that's really 12 things I hate about you instead of 10, because things go up. So when we meet their dad, it's Larry Miller, and Larry Miller, I love Larry Miller. He is so
Delight.
good. And the funny thing about this is that they made a a remake of this movie for ABC Family. And first of all, it's not available on Disney Plus, but they own it. But it was basically the same movie, but they did it again for ABC Family. So the funny thing is Larry Miller comes back and plays the dad again. So
Oh,
I
that's
thought,
really nice.
yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. But but every time I see Larry Miller, I always think of XR. I don't know if you ever watched the Buzz Lightyear Star Command TV show. It was like a spinoff of Toy Story, and it was about them in space. And there was this little robot, and it was XR, and that was Larry Miller. Sorry, just putting that out there. So we meet the dad, and we find out that he is an obstetrician, and he is very frank with his daughters about the birds and the bees. I mean, I don't remember that being a thing in my family, thus being like that up close and personal with like those terms. And now I'm putting you on blast.
Certainly not mine either. But what I really liked is that Bianca just kind of throws it back at him, like also very frankly. And so it's kind of a nice repartee they built up, but it's awkward.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. So, when this is happening, we basically learn the underlying theme of this movie, which is he will not let neither daughter is allowed to date until they graduate, and neither of them have. But then he modifies it when he realizes that his older daughter doesn't want to date. He's like, okay, Bianca, you can date when Kat dates. And so then that sets up basically the premise for the rest of the movie is, everybody wants to date Bianca, and to date Bianca, you've got to get her mean old sister to go out on a date. Does this fly in 2022?
Oh, I think so. The premise of the movie, I mean, barely makes any sense anyway, but like, because he could have just stuck to his old rule and that also would have worked. But I don't know, there are parts of this premise that are like timeless, and then also parts that are like deeply dated. And that goes for pretty much everything about the movie. Does the premise fly in 2022? Probably not, but it is still very watchable and enjoyable
Okay, that's fair.
as a period piece. What do you think?
As a period piece. No, that's what I'm asking you because I don't know. I mean, the idea that she's very independent. Kat's very independent.
Right.
And so I think showing a strong, independent teenager, that's a great thing. And, and then she's making her own choices, and she's kind of like leading the herd of she sets her own rules, which I think that's a great example. The dad thing, I don't know. I don't know I feel like I need to plead the fifth on this one. So, I'm not that I'm holding anything back. I just don't know.
Yeah.
So then, now we've already met Cameron, who is played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. We kind of get the feeling this is his story from the beginning. If you've never watched this before, you may think that, even though he's not on the cover. I mean, he's on the cover with everybody else, but it's really about Julia Stiles, Kat, and Heath Ledger, Patrick. It's like really their story, and everything else is just kind of like a B
Heath
story.
Ledger just kind of steals the show anyway. So like, even if it wasn't meant to be, it's just like this guy is so effortlessly charming. He's so compelling that you want to watch more of him.
There was one thing that was a little disturbing to me, and I don't know, I mean, and I can show it later, but I feel like there were some scenes with Heath Ledger and Julia Stiles where I thought they could be brother and sister. Like the actors, like they looked so much alike that it was a little weird. No?
I could see that. I could definitely see that.
Yeah. So Cameron, who again, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, has this great idea that he's going to try to date Bianca, and so his new friend Michael, who seems to have had no life until Cameron came along, says to him, "Hey, you know what? She needs a French tutor," and he's like, "Great, I'll go learn French." And so he uses that as an excuse to, which I've seen that before. It was in Community, we've seen it a lot before, but it was interesting that he's like, "I'm gonna go learn French," and then she just buys into it, and then he's kind of like saying, "I like you," and then she's like, "Oh well, I can't date," but she likes Joey. And so Joey's like this supermodel kid, and she likes him, and so she's going to basically, from the beginning, she's using Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character Cameron as a way to get out and date. And it's just like, okay, so you're using this poor little kid that I thought was going to be the lead of this thing, and I feel bad for him because when I look at him, I think of like Tommy from Third Rock from the Sun, not like the dude from Looper and Inception.
I think she's very clear from the beginning that she's not romantically interested in him to start. She's like, oh, that's really cute, right? Like, that's not the response of, like, I really want to date you too. I just can't. But it's like, you're cute. But even if I wanted to, I can't.
You don't think
Like,
she's
I don't,
using him at this point? Like she knows
I,
she's using him and she's stringing him along?
I don't think she at no point is stringing him along. She's definitely friendly with him, but I don't think like she owes him anything. And so when they're in the car later after he drives her home and he starts yelling at her, I'm like, this is offensive because like just because you people are friends and you're choosing to hang out together when she's been clear she's sort of interested in this other guy, but she's been nice to you. Like she doesn't owe you anything. And
I
I think that is like some harmful 1990s like conditioning for women that like you have to, if a guy is interested in you and you aren't interested in him back, well, you just can't be friends. And it's your obligation to then be mean. Because by the way, if she just stopped seeing him, she would look super mean, right? Instead, she's like friendly with him. And he's the one that's like, I'm going to scheme and make it so that she can date. And like, hopefully she'll fall in love with me. Now, luckily, this is Joseph Gordon-Levitt, so he can do no wrong, and it's charming. But if that role were played by anyone else, I think that would be like much more offensive.
like almost
But if
scary.
you just take it down to like what happened, I'm like, yeah, why does he think she owes him anything? Women don't owe you anything.
No, I agree with that. I mean, the whole like idea of, well, you bought dinner or whatever. I totally get that. But for this one, I really felt like she was stringing him along. And I guess maybe I misread that situation, but I felt like she was like kind of like she stopped and we saw the smirk on her face where she's like, if I can get this guy to find a way to get me dateable, then I can go out with a guy I want to go out with. And so I guess that's the way I saw that he was
No,
jumping
I
through
think
all these
that's the way
hoops.
the movie's trying to make you think about it. So that when Joseph Gordon-Levitt gets mad at her in the car, you're not like, what a jerk. But if you really think about it, I'm like, she's been pretty clear. She doesn't start flirting with him or pretend like they're still like in cahoots together and having like friends, but she's not like touching him or acting like flirty or anything. They're
And
just like hanging out.
there are those times where she sets the boundaries, like the whole like he's like,
Right.
well, can I see your room? And she's like, girls' rooms are personal, even though they're like
Right.
looting through her sister's room.
In the underwear drawer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, girls' rooms are they're very personal. There's one character, and again, we haven't really gotten into the casting yet, but there's one character that I think looks very interesting that I wonder if he got cut a little bit. And it's Patrick's best friend. It seems like he's his best friend. It's a scary looking like this like dude who hangs out with him in a couple of his classes and on the field, but we don't really learn much about the guy. It's this dude here, and he's like
Oh
almost like
yeah.
he's his protector. He's like, dude, you're being stupid, you know. Like where like I wanted to know that guy's story. I want to know more about him because again, we see him there, and then we see him when Patrick is approached by Joey to date Kat. He's out there with him at the time. So other than
Yeah,
that, we don't
and we
really see
never
him too
see
much.
people that look like him in movies playing anything but like foil or background characters, right? Like,
Yeah,
really nice to have a movie about a kid like that with a shaved head and a little bit of a mohawk in the 90s. Like, what's his story?
yeah. Um, so again, Michael and Cameron are trying to figure out how to make this work, how to do the thing. They're plotting, and planning, and so you know this again goes to the misunderstanding of how much work Cameron's putting into it versus any, you know, like how much she's reciprocating his his affection. So Cameron is working with Michael. They decide to go and find someone to date Kat, the mean older girl. Then they decide they found the guy, but they're like, I don't, we can't convince him to do it, but maybe we could get him to somebody to pay him. And so they go to Joey, who's the rich guy who wants to date Bianca anyway. I'm like, this doesn't seem like this would
Foolish.
work. Like this seems complicated. I actually think this is the only scene where I kind of like Joey. Other than him writing on Michael's face, he comes off like so calm, cool, and collected about everything. I mean,
Yeah, but this action here that you're describing is sociopathic.
yeah,
It's so instantaneous and without thought as he's like continuing his conversation, just drawing a face. And I'm like, why are all like the hot jocks from 90 movies all like rapey sociopaths? I don't understand.
Well, because you're supposed to like the underdog. You're supposed to like the good kid. Although, Heath Ledger's character is the bad guy from the other side of the tracks, sort of. I mean, you find out later that he's really not, that he's got this reputation that he loves that is all untrue, but it's all of legend. But when, he's the bad guy from the other side of the tracks, but then you realize he's really the guy that you want to root for, the sensitive guy that you want her to end up with. I guess. I mean, that's the way I felt. I can't assume your feelings on that, but does that seem like it tracks?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. And there's so much surprising depth to him. Because at first he just seems like he's totally utilitarian, totally like this is just about the money. And then they end up having so much in common, and he seem to get real value out of like the things that she enjoys, the music she likes and stuff. It like actually can communicate on her level.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool.
So there's another group of people, and it's the guy whose party they go to, and I can't remember his name, but this is like a subgroup, and this story is like almost like a C story. Like, we don't really know much about these guys, although apparently they seem snobbish, they seem rich, but we don't know I don't know what their status is, really. It's kind of interesting, right? Because he's used as the reason that there's a party, but then we see him here, and he almost looks like the mean kid.
Bogey Lowenstein, I think, is the name of the guy.
Yeah.
And I don't remember from like the first like establishing shot, but that line that I really liked where he's like, "Oh, yuppie greed is back." Is this part of that group that was like in that like we're just trying like. Yeah, they're kind of like what was the sitcom in the early 80s with Michael J. Fox where he plays like the like business loving like capitalist son.
Spin City? Or
earlier than that.
Family Ties.
Family Ties, yeah. So I think it's like kind of those are like the Family Ties type of group, or like the Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air kind of group. That's like the vibe that I get from them. So I'm not sure that they're exactly nerds, but they're people who are very interested in making money and being into the yuppie greed that is apparently back.
Okay, I'll buy that. So there's also I did remember this movie being I'm going to use the word like abrasive, like the language, the him drawing on his face, some of that stuff. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't remember that, but it's not like Superbad, like the movie Superbad. It's not there, but it's definitely not 16 Candles. I feel like it's
right
a little edgier than that, maybe.
Well, there are other problems with 16 Candles, but there's like certainly, I guess that's like there was a lot of like bullying and stuff in John Hughes movies in the 80s. And then I think with the 90s, like took that and then put like some kind of grunge edge to it that made it harsher. But that's where you get like these amazing lines in this movie, like those damn like Dawson's River kids and like all of these.
Oh yeah, Larry Miller's whole speech that he did there, it was just like getting jiggy out there, and yeah, it was a time capsule sentence almost, and where this was taking place.
So when he says, otherwise known as an orgy, hell is just a sauna.
So they set this in motion. Joey decides he's going to go get Patrick, and he's going to bribe him into dating Kat. So here's that character again. It's basically, I think, the only other time we see him. He's basically coming up to him saying, "Hey, I want to pay you to take Kat out so that I can date Bianca." And so when he asked for the money, it threw me off how much he asked for, like, or how much he offered. Like, did that throw you off? He's like, "I'll give you $20." This is what Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like, Cameron and Michael couldn't come up with between the two of them, is $20. Like,
that's when I started using the inflation calculator, because I was like, it got up to, so the first thing was like, it got up to $50 per date, which is $86. So that's like in 2022 dollars, which is a little bit reasonable. Later, he says the price goes up to $100 a date, which is $130 and change in 2022 dollars. So that's like a little more, but like, yeah, like the initial offer, I don't know, maybe he was lowballing him, but like certainly certainly those friends could have come up with $20 a date.
But they go over to him and they say, like, we need you because you've got the money and you can bankroll this.
Right.
But this doesn't seem like an insane amount of money to me for especially
No.
this neighborhood, this school, this
These kids should
situation.
have that money. And then they're setting it up. They're setting up the guy who's vying for the attentions of Bianca
Yeah. You're like,
to
how is this the
waltz
right
right
move?
in. It doesn't, that part doesn't make any sense. It's like, isn't there any guy here that can bankroll this? And if you don't want to put up your own money, which doesn't make sense, but like anybody else who can back this situation.
By the way, our good friend Dawn has studied up for this movie. She actually thought you were going to be on last week for this, so she's been prepared.
Oh,
She's just all up in the chat. Love the casting for sure. Joey is so smarmy, thus not actually
yeah.
attractive. I buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a
Yeah.
thing, even like the Mean Girls, right? In whether it's the movie Mean Girls or any of those, you just look at them and you're like, okay, really the one, like a great example is Boomerang. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Boomerang with Eddie Murphy, but you got Robin Givens, who is gorgeous, and then you've got Halle Berry, who's cute, but you like her more because Robin Givens is just not nice in that movie, right? Like the character, not Robin Givens. I'm sure she's a lovely human being, but I
Yeah.
mean, just like
Yeah.
that's kind of the thing, right? So when the guys like Gaston, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You'd
exactly.
rather be with the beast than a guy that's just like that.
And
So,
he's this guy, just like Gaston, is so unbelievably vain. Like all he can talk about is like his looks, and it's it's exhausting.
which is where they kind of lose Bianca, or where he kind of loses Bianca, because they finally start putting these pieces together where Patrick is starting to make the moves to get her attention, to get her on a date. At this point, it's almost like a challenge for him more than something he seemingly wants to do. He's just doing it for the money, it seems like. But then he sort of gets invested in it, which then, of course, is where all of these movies take an ugly turn, is when they finally find out that that's what happened. But Bianca is just at odds with her sister because she's like, why don't you be normal? Why don't you come and be like the sister I need you to be? And then she says, okay, I will go to this party so that you can go. And then when they get to the party, Bianca is not nice to her. And I was just like, do we hate Bianca?
Yeah, it is. That's a good point. Because the whole point was to get her there. It shouldn't matter what her sister does or doesn't do at that point. She should just like go and have fun at the party that she was just so desperate to go to. The point is she's out. But I don't know. Maybe she's just. I think it's hard to fully hate the character of Bianca. It would have been really easy to make her entirely vapid, especially with lines about her Prada backpack and her like. You could go that way, but they give a little depth to her, but also I'll give a little grace to a girl who is 15.
Okay, if you must. So this is where I'm going to show you where I feel like they look a little similar. Watch when they show them as close up. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
They just look like they could be siblings to me.
Yeah, no, I could see it.
So yeah, but
I
I
was gonna
love.
say his face is always there's always like a real close up on his face, so I think girls when they're watching that just imagine that they're talking to him and are not thinking too clearly.
All right, let's bring this out. Did you have a crush on Heath Ledger in this movie?
Uh, Not at the time, I think, but in hindsight, I'm like I should have. He's very charming.
Okay, all right. One of the other things that I kept noticing about Heath Ledger was when he would smile, the big smile, it felt so jokery. Like his smile was so wide that I would just be like, no wonder they chose him for the Joker. It was like spot on.
I also
So,
looked up like how old he was at the time because his face is like very young, but it also like simultaneously looks very mature. And I realized he has smile at 20 years old. He has like very defined smile lines because his smile is so big, and that sort of ages the bottom half of his face. But his eyes and forehead, he just like still looks like kind of like a baby.
I don't know off the top of my head. I assume, was he actually from Australia?
I should have looked it up. there's no other reason to have that accent. Uh, oh no, he's Australian. Australian, yeah.
Okay. So, but I found that an interesting choice, though, that they would let him have his Australian accent in this, because normally you would do like a Nicole Kidman, hide the accent,
Hmm.
because there's no purpose in him being from Australia in this. But the fact that they probably just were like, okay, we'll give him that backstory just so he can use his regular accent.
Yeah, make him look a little more mysterious, basically. I think in the school.
Yeah. Um, so I think that once this gets started and he's finding his way through, then they go to the party, and Bianca. She then realizes that Joey's just like all about himself, and then she sees Cameron and is like, did I make a mistake? Maybe I made a mistake. But at this point, Cameron is just devastated, and then he goes to Patrick and says, "Okay, we're calling this off." See, I think once they handed this over to Joey, there was never anything that he could call off, right?
Right, right. They're calling what off? They're not feeding the money to Joey. Joey's bankrolling the whole operation. And if she chooses Joey, by the way, that's her choice. Like,
Right. Making bad decisions could be her choice.
yeah. The only thing that Bianca did that I thought was like really offended me was when her friend was like, "Well, I'm going to go out with him," and then Bianca's like, "What?" And her friend's like, "Yeah, you passed." Like,
Oh, but she was nasty about it too, like telling her that like there was a bet about him, and she was not nice
oh
about
yeah,
it.
that did happen, but that happened later at the prom.
Yeah, true.
Before that, like as she's like leaving the party with him, like I'm like, why are you mad at her? You said you're not interested in him.
So check the smile out here. This is the one I was talking about when they switched to
Yeah,
him. Hopefully, very quickly, or not that one, but
yeah,
right there. It's like,
yeah,
that
yeah.
is so Joker. And I think he will, to me, always be known as playing the Joker in the Christopher Nolan movie, because it was so good, and it was. I mean, he kind of redefined the Joker. I think until that point, Jack Nicholson kind of owned that, and then once that came
Right.
out, I think that's who Jared Leto was. I think trying to be. He was trying to make his own, but I think he was kind of trying to be Heath Ledger. It was
Such
just.
crazy talent.
Yes, and of course he is now passed away right before the I think before the release of the movie, which was tragic that he was gone so soon. But yeah, it was it was neat to see him in this younger role, and I remember seeing him in so many other things along the way that he was
Yeah, it was a
in.
breakout role for him.
Yeah,
So that's kind of amazing.
A Knight's Tale was one of the ones I really remember from him too.
Mm,
Let's talk about the rest of the cast. So Larry Miller, we talked about. We talked about Heath Ledger a little bit. Julia Stiles. Um,
yeah.
I think she played this character almost brilliantly, because you kind
Yeah.
of didn't like her. She was off-putting, and then you kind of did like her when she showed you the softer side. She played it, I think, exactly how it needed to be played. I don't know anybody could have played it better.
It's really made for her. I feel like she has there's definitely a softness about her, but she's like able to be witty and have an attitude and yeah, it's almost like it was written exactly for her. And she played similar roles in other things as well. And then I don't know what she's done since.
Yeah.
But she's sort of an iconic actress of that time.
Okay, we have a rule. That's iconic.
Oh, is that
Yeah,
okay?
got a drink. You said iconic. All right, so um, one, so first of all, I want to say, we're a little more halfway through here. Just if you haven't already and you're watching with us, we would love it if you give us a like, especially because Allison is taking the time to come back on and hang out with us. So give likes for Allison. Um, I assume there's a train near you, because Arch Fox said give likes for the trains. Was there a
It
train
is,
going?
believe it or not, boats on the Mississippi River.
Ooh, fancy. It did. I thought it sounded like a train too. That's great. Um, and then also, I want to take this opportunity, because you're a super fan of this, if I may, to ask you a few trivia questions. Things I picked up on while I was watching the movie, and to see if you saw them too, and maybe you remember from watching this movie. Are you up for that?
Oh, yeah. Uh-oh. I'm nervous. Okay.
Don't be nervous. There is no reason to be nervous. I was going to say there were no wrong answers, but there are wrong answers.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so the counselor, you've got to know the counselor's name, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you love Alice and Janney. You
I
can't
do.
not
I
know
do.
this.
Uh, yeah, but it's something hilarious and it like fits perfectly, and I've already forgotten.
Miss Perky.
Perky,
Yeah.
yes.
She calls Patrick she calls him a name when they first meet in the office, kind of a derogatory name. What does she call him?
Oh, I don't know.
Kangaroo Boy. I wasn't sure you'd get that one or not.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Again, yeah. When Cameron first meets Michael, there's a guy that pulls up with an AV cart, which is something I'm sure we've all seen in high schools. What was on the AV cart?
Uh, I'm gonna. Is it something that's like totally out of the we wouldn't see anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like an A track player or something?
Kind of the same along the same lines.
Cassettes.
Slides.
Oh wow,
Slide
yeah.
projector. Remember that? Kids, look it up.
Yeah.
Slide projectors. Woo. Man, and if you didn't get a slide projector in class, you missed a party. Oh man. Okay. When Kat walks into the school, she sees a poster and she rips it down. Do you know what the poster was for?
Oh my gosh, jeez. I'm
Sorry.
really bad at visuals. This is
No.
very. Cat sees a poster and rips it down. I don't know.
It was for prom.
Ah,
And it was prom
that makes
2000.
sense.
It said on it, which I thought was interesting because this came out in March of 1999. So they
Right.
were already kind of like playing into the
But
future for
I
this.
had, when I was reading, they actually filmed it in 97. So I bet they were just hedging their bets.
Yeah. Yep. It was prom. Um, yeah. Nico in chat was like prom. So there you go. Okay. What
I want to see your
school?
prom pics, Rob.
You what?
I want to see your prom pics, Rob. Yeah.
Later. We'll do that. We'll do that later. They're all in black and white. No.
Stop.
Uh, so there's some more like random stuff that I won't pull out because I'm like you wouldn't have noticed that if you're visual and all that. So let me see. Do you know? We talked about the high school. Do you know the name on the high school?
On the high school where it was filmed, or the high school that
The high
the
school in the movie has a name over the door.
definitely no.
Padu, P-A-D-U, Padua, P-A-D-U-A.
Padua, probably. Yeah.
Padua. Okay. Yeah, that's what I meant. She went into a guitar store. Do you know the name of the guitar store?
Guitar Center. I don't know. Those were a thing.
No, they were definitely a thing, but no, it wasn't. It wasn't Guitar Center. It was Gills. Yeah, not necessarily that you would know that. I was going to ask you what kind of car Cameron drove.
It was a some kind of convertible.
Cameron? No, he drove a
Oh,
Volvo.
Cameron's driving. Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
he's driving a Volvo.
yeah.
Okay.
Do you know the school that she
Everyone
got?
seemed to have
Do you know
convertibles.
the school she got accepted to?
Oh yeah. Sarah Lawrence.
There you go. Why do you know that? Why do you know that like that?
Oh, I almost went there for grad school actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Well,
I did
that's
not, but
impressive.
yeah, it's in Bronxville, New York, and it is like sort of a it's I guess a school that makes perfect sense for her cat to want to attend, and it's like kind of cliche that it's like that or Smith or something. A college like that is exactly the kind of East Coast like liberal arts school that she would be attracted to.
Okay. Um, Finally, and I don't think there's any way in the world you would know this, but it entertained me to no end when I saw it, is we know that Joey is a model, right? And he shows her, meaning Bianca, two different poses. And on those pictures, it says the name of the modeling agency he works for. Do you have any
Oh
idea what that was?
no, I did not see the name of the agency.
Yeah, it said the Shamrock Modeling Agency. Sorry. I know a lot of that was deep, but this is just like as I'm watching and
Really
I was
deep.
doing
No,
this.
this
So,
is great. I love that you noticed that stuff.
I mean, again, I look at that stuff and go, I wonder. Like some of the stuff is a little bit too much. Like, a lot of times people who are on the show will go, "Oh, well, you're going to look for numbers." I don't think I pulled any numbers out of this one, but like there was a couple of little things like Michael was doing his tour of the quad. They showed a coffee stand like in the quad, and it was called Tully's. I didn't know if you would notice that or not, or I don't know
See,
anything
these
about
are
coffee.
things I would never think to look for, but these are the super important things to make things look authentic, but never
Yeah.
looking at names of things. Although sometimes you find kind of clever nods to the audience and think. The one thing I did notice was the flyers that they threw in the stairwell were for Bogey Lowenstein's party.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, apparently, this was around the time of Night at the Roxbury, the sketch
Oh
that
my gosh, yeah.
Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan used to
Yeah.
do. And so there's this scene when they're at the party with these dudes, like doing that whole thing. So the music was a big deal in this one. So thank you for playing along. I appreciate it. I love throwing the trivia out there. At some point, you know, hopefully people were playing along in the chat. I did see a few people playing along, but you know, I just enjoy like finding the details in the movies. But again, totally apparently the first time I watched it, missed the point that there was based on the Taming of the Shrew. So Gabrielle Union, going back to the casting, Gabrielle Union, I didn't remember being in this movie. This must have been a first for her. And again, going on to huge things and then smaller things like Cheaper by the Dozen with Zach Braff. But then, you know, you had Joseph Gordon-Levitt that went on to big things. You know,
But he's also like was a famous child star too because he was in
Third Rock.
stuff in the 80s, Third Rock, and before that the movie with the four boys growing up, which will come to me. But yeah,
You're talking about
it's like a
Stand By
classic.
Me?
Stand By Me, yeah.
Was he in Stand By Me?
All right, maybe not. Maybe I'm just.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think he was in
all
Stand
right,
By
I'm making
Me.
that. Scratch that. I wish we had the ability to edit.
You may mean River Phoenix. I don't know.
Sure, maybe that's it.
But which was another tragic story. River Phoenix, the same as like the Heath Ledger story. So, yeah, it's I don't know. So Bianca has I mean, the casting thing. I think that's pretty much everybody except for and I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy who played the it's another David. Why am I blanking on his name? David Leisure, the guy who played the archery coach and the soccer coach and was out there. I guess he was the soccer coach and he was out
Gym
on
teacher or whatever.
the gym teacher. So David Leisure, I saw that name in the credits. I was like, I know that name, and I see him and I recognize him, but I don't think he's ever been in anything like I thought was a big deal. But there's that weird exchange where she's trying to get Patrick out of class, and she's trying to distract this guy, and the only thing she can think to do is pull her shirt up and flash an adult 3 times
Male
her
teacher.
age? Male teacher, yeah.
Yeah, and he just kind of stares and says nothing. There's no response, which is also kind of amazing.
Yeah. And then the class claps as she's leaving. So there's that.
Yeah, they didn't see anything. They enjoyed the show.
So anyway, there's all that going on. But I think that the actors in general in this, it's maybe at the time you wouldn't have known who they were, but now you look back at this, you're like, I can't believe all these big names are in this movie. Or am I making that up? Are they not really big names?
No, I think this movie is like filled with people that it's like the first, especially all those establishing shots because you're meeting everybody. And so Gabrielle Union comes onto the screen. My husband's like, "What? Gabrielle Union is in this?" And Alyssa Olyanek, I forget how to pronounce her name, but like she was really big at the time. I don't know what she's done since, but she was in the Nickelodeon show Alex Mack, and so she was like famous at that moment. Joseph Gordon-Levitt obviously becomes super famous, but it's like at the time when he's breaking out. You've got Allison Janney and Heath Ledger, both of whom have won Oscars. That's like tremendous for a like teen like rom-com movie.
Yeah. Usually you have like one or two, and that's it. And it's usually
Right.
the two leads that are that. By the way, Patrick Hackett is in the chat, and he said in all caps, "Allison, I miss you."
I miss you too, Patrick.
So they were catching him up that there were boats because that was a big thing during March Madness last year that Kamila just had it with boats. Anyway, so as this movie's going along, Heath Ledger is falling in love seemingly. I don't know if I mean, with Julia Stiles' character, and he does this thing where, he takes her home from the party. She tries to kiss him, and he does what I think is the right thing because she's drunk, and decides not to do it. He said, "This is not the right time." To which she's just angry at him as if he had just stabbed her.
Yeah, well, that's an angry drunk for you, right?
But then she carries that on, obviously, like through that, and then he's got to make it up to her, which I think is funny. That like the suggestion is, hey, she embarrassed herself. That's what happened. She was embarrassed. You need to embarrass yourself to get back in her good graces. To which he does the big musical number.
Yeah.
The whole "I think I love you." Now, why? It doesn't seem a little too soon to sing "I think I love you," or I mean, I guess it's just because it was for the effect, but.
I mean, everything about it is ludicrous. It's charming, it's wonderful, but I mean, this scene is exactly why we have like promposals now, right? Like this kind of romanticization of this behavior is like why people do these huge gestures at like 16 years old to invite someone to prom. Between that and the Will Shakespeare like putting a dress and a note in the locker and stuff, it's like totally over the top grand gesture, which I guess like is what my generation ingested in their formative years as what you're supposed to do. But it's it's ludicrous.
Well, you're right. It could be the whole promposal thing because the whole band was involved and it was almost like a flash mob of sorts. And but the band being out there with the shirts on that say "band," like they're running some kind of an FBI drill or something that says "victim" and whatever else, "band." But obviously he really leans into this, and then the security guards come out, and then he like runs away from the security guards. And then I don't know. It was a neat moment. Clearly, she gives in instantly when she sees what a fool he's making of himself. But how come Heath Ledger didn't get a music career out of this?
As I was watching that, I asked my husband, I'm like, is this his actual voice? And my husband was like, this has to be like lip syncing. This has to be, this can't be his singing voice. But I don't know.
Yeah, and then when he does this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. And then he like pats the security guard on the butt.
Oh yeah.
That was really funny. So, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I have to do this because after he gets caught and everybody is applauding him, they do this shot with like, the castle on the hill. Just crazy.
Yep. That school's bananas.
Bananas. And then here's my boy David Leisure. Like again, I recognize him from so many things, but at the same time, I don't know why I knew his name so cold. So, and this is a great scene though with him like shaking the kid down for like weed, and then on the way back to his desk going, "Oh, munchies." Like I mean, then we're all at that age going, "Oh, this is a cool movie." I don't know. Like I mean, were you thinking that at the time?
I mean, that's how you got it. We're edgy, I guess, at the time.
Yeah. And so she sneaks him out of class. That's when she flashes him. I'm not going to show that, but she sneaks him out of class, and they go pedal boating
with the green screen.
Yeah. And then after that, they go and they play paintball. But I've never seen paintball played like this, where you have a bag of basically paint balloons that you're like throwing at each other. So,
right. It's usually, yeah. If this movie couldn't get any more 90s, the activity that they decide to do together is paintball. I mean, could have been laser tag, either one, same difference. But you're right. Normally it's with like actual like guns and paint pellets. So that was, this looks like more fun to me, actually.
Is it romantic, or does it bother you that before he kisses her every single time he brushes her hair over her ear?
Oh, romantic.
Oh, is it?
It's fine.
Yeah, because like every time before he kisses her, he brushes her hair over like beside her ear, like every single time. And there's a time at the end where he's about to kiss her and he does it, and then he backs away and he kisses her again and he does it again first. And I was like, I think you're doing it too much, dude. Like
Maybe too many times.
Savor it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, they're probably so heavily choreographed, those scenes. I can't even imagine how awkward that is.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So I was also going to ask you if you knew what town this was in, but you know that this is Seattle because you talked about it earlier on. Because
yeah, it's in a suburb of Seattle.
And the establishing shot at the very beginning shows the Space Needle. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, but I thought it was the Bay Area. Like, I didn't notice the first establishing shot, but when I first saw like the neighborhood and the school, I was like, is this maybe the Bay Area? And then when they go paddle boating and I see that, I was like, oh, this is clearly Seattle. But either way, this is like West Coast, like upper middle class suburban life.
Yeah. I guess so. I don't know.
Pacific Northwest.
I'll take your word for it. I do like that Larry Miller had his own exercise area on the deck with the hot tub and the exercise bike and the ab roller, which was like, that was hilarious. Seeing the ab roller on there. Again, kids, look it up.
Yeah,
but
like a Thigh Master from 10 years earlier. Yeah, it's very of the times. My dad totally had one.
So Bianca is a sophomore, and she's arguing the fact that she needs to go to prom because this is a kid's rite of passage. But really, you only need to go to your senior prom for that to be the kid's rite of passage. Everyone up until then feels like, maybe that's just me because I only went to one, but maybe like the rite of passage. You probably went to like 4 or 5, didn't you? Don't lie. Don't.
We're not going to talk about how many proms I went to.
Don't even say it.
We're not going to talk about how many proms I went to. But no, I also went to a high school where actually we didn't have a senior prom, but we had a junior prom, and that was the big thing. So it happened once in your high school career, and I think typically it was like once a senior year you had your senior prom. I think that's most high schools. But I have heard of schools that do it annually. So there's like homecoming, and then also the prom at the end. So like giving some, in a high school like mine, the thing was like, oh, you got to find a junior who'll take you and who'll be like, who you could be a date. So that was like a big thing to like get to be brought to the prom as the date of a junior when it wasn't your prom yet. But I think in other schools it functions a little bit more like homecoming, and I just assume that's like what this is. And it's just, this is so typical like 80s, 90s John Hughes kind of movie where like there's a prom scene, something happens at the prom. Actually, like those dresses were just so of the times too, and like I looked it up, and like the Gabrielle Union dress was designed by it's slipping my by Betsy Johnson, right? Which was like huge at that particular time, and just like the dresses that they were. So yeah, that one. There's another one that's hilarious, and I had one very similar that I wore to a friend's sweet 16.
The other thing, now that I'm thinking about that, because she's wearing this necklace, and earlier it became a thing about the pearls, it's almost like there was a storyline they were trying to force about mom. And I think when the movie first starts, it seems like maybe mom has passed on because all you see is dad, and then it seems like mom left them. And then and then like there's some argument about the pearls that Bianca's wearing. Well, they look so good on me. And then obviously that's a trigger for Kat. And so when we're watching this, and I feel like there should have been a little more about the mom. Am I wrong?
Yeah, a little more explanation, and probably some more explanation of why that has like caused the dad to be so insanely overprotective. Something like that, and maybe how that like has played into some attachment issues. But yeah, you're right, it's totally missing. It's just like there is no mom and there's no real explanation. I also thought she'd passed away, and then it's like clear later that she had left, but it's they address it like 3 times and you never really get a full, like Kat could have said it as she's like describing what happened. She could have been like, my mom left and this is what the impact was, but instead she's just like, oh, she just left.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like we should have seen more of what was going on with that for some reason, it just felt like there should have been an explanation. When you go into the extras on this, there are none, so it's not deleted scenes.
Right.
I do think this is maybe the coolest prom like meetup ever, because he just happens to be there and like looking as cool as possible. He doesn't have the tie. He's got the shirt open. She's looks amazing, handsome. Like this looks.
Oh, is she wearing the mom's pearls here?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, it really, I think that scene where they meet up is really cool, and then they go into this prom, which looks freaking amazing. I assume this is not their high school, but I mean, since it looks like a castle from the outside, maybe it could have been. But there's a huge chandeliers and everything, and it's super fancy.
Yeah.
But she had challenged him earlier to say, what's your motivation for taking me to prom? And he said, nothing, I just want to spend time with you. And at that point, you're like, this is going to come back. This is a 90s movie. It's going to come back. Third act is going to kill him. And it didn't hurt as much as you think it will. But, he finds out that, or she finds out that Joey was paying him to date her. And she seems to get over that a lot faster than she got over him not kissing her in the car.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. The pacing issues with the movie.
It's like, we got to wrap it up. Yeah. I mean, it seems like that whole like reveal happens while there's still 17 minutes left in a 93-minute movie. So,
right. And in hindsight, I remember like where he's singing in the stadium. I thought that was an apology for, like, I'd seen this movie many times, but it had been many years since I've seen it. But I remembered it as an apology for having taken money to date her, not as an apology for like not kissing her when she's drunk, which again, right thing to do.
And all of an easy answer to all this would be all of the money that he made, he spent back on her, starting with like hiring the band and, getting them to hook up the PA system and going on the dates. And then, I mean, not that makes it okay, but I mean, you look back at it and every dime, it seems like, including the guitar at the end, like goes back to like he paid for all of it. So
he should have just disclosed, because he very quickly started to have feelings for her, and he could have been like, hey, this is super awkward. Like, I don't know why this guy really wants me to take you out, but like he wanted to pay me. I thought you're pretty, and like now I'm getting to know you. I really like you. Let's take his money and like let's be in on this together. Like, how much money?
Right, as much as she didn't like Joey, that would be a good thing to do that.
Yeah.
Also,
she would enjoy that, and then he could have been like upfront about the whole thing. It was a weird thing to hide.
But it's always the lie that messes up everything, right? It's the thing you didn't disclose that comes back to get you at the end of the second act, going into the third act. It's always the lie gets found out. And, whether you're pretending to be somebody you're not, or you did something you weren't supposed to do, it's the lie that makes that need for the third act to resolve.
I just prefer when like there are miscommunications that are more natural, or like a genuine disagreement that arises naturally. But when it's something because like somebody just didn't say a thing, that's like, all right. Like,
yeah, miscommunications happen all the time on Three's Company. If you ever watched that one, that's every episode of Three's Company was a miscommunication all the time. That was what it was. But this one it was definitely an omission, a lie by omission on this one. And you're right, he should have probably.
And the longer that kind of thing goes on, like the worse it is. So like you just might as well get out in front of it.
But she gave him the opportunity to come clean, and you saw him hesitate and then push through, which again I think was great acting, because you could see in his face like, we're the audience, we know what happened. He's got this moment, and you're like, are you going to tell him? Because I know you can tell her right now, but you don't. So I thought that was pretty well played. The other thing that he did, he must have done with his money. So Letters to Cleo was the band that was at the Skunk. They were the band on the rooftop at the end, and they were the band that showed up at the prom. And he says, I cashed in some favors. You cashed in some favors for this band, Letters to Cleo, to come play your prom, walk all the way up to the girl you brought there. She just kind of stares at her, and then she walks away. What?
Yeah, I don't know. Their music was great. It fit perfectly in this movie. Yeah. I was like, this is like a poor woman's Gwen Stefani over here, which is also perfectly of the times. But that was a very weird, like, moment, I
I
guess.
kind of love all the music from this, though. I was listening and kind of listing a lot of it. The B&L song at the beginning that you mentioned, and then you move from that where everybody's enjoying that song to her listening to Bad Reputation, and then it just carries that with her mood all the way back to the house or to the
Yeah.
school, where she like rips down the poster. Word Up from Cameo was playing, and Hypnotized by Biggie was playing. Like there was a lot of really cool songs
Really
that
good.
I'm listening to. I was like, okay, yeah, I like this. This is fun.
The soundtrack is outstanding, and everything fits exactly the moment, which I think why, like, pacing issues aside, or like issues of like maybe this doesn't work in 2022, pieces of it, it's just like you forgive it because it's just such you're in for this upbeat 90s ride.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like the vibe of it. They resolve it at the end because she does the "I hate you" poem at the end, which again, missed opportunity to do 10 things I hate about you. What do you feel like when there's a scene where it's all coming together, where Joey comes in and Bianca knows now that there was a bet with Joey and her, because Charity, is that her name? Chastity.
Chastity, I think.
Yeah, tells her that, and then like it all starts to break down basically because of Joey, and he comes up, and there's that moment where Joseph Gordon-Levitt comes up to him and kind of gets in his face, and then he walks away, and then there's a brief moment where you're like, is Joseph Gordon-Levitt going to turn around and clock this guy, or what's going to happen? So he's standing right here, and he's standing behind him, and it's like, is he going to punch him? Like, did you want that to be what happened here? Because that's not what happened here.
No, and it's what I want. It's what I thought I wanted to happen there, and then what actually happened is much better.
Yeah, that's because that's the thing is you have that moment where you're like, he's gonna like, Joey's gonna, he does the thing where he looks away and then he comes back and he punches him, and then you see Bianca punch Joey, and then it's like, okay, you're right, this is better.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And empowering that Bianca didn't need her boyfriend to save her from whatever. She's got agency, and she's gonna take care of them both, and then take care of him, and they're gonna be off.
And then she like picks him up off the floor, and and then like, oh, happily ever after.
Yeah.
Isn't that sweet? So, by the way,
And he's so charming.
yeah, exactly. And
That
then
smile.
and then Joey's laying on the floor, and nobody seems to care. And then, the Patrick and Kat fight, and they go away. But then it's all resolved when she reads her poem, and then he gives her a guitar, and it's happily ever after.
Yeah, yeah. He bought the forgiveness, and they're back together.
He bought the
Oh,
forgiveness.
one of my favorite details is that like after the punch, he's like, "I have a nasal spray ad in the morning."
With the Shamrock Modeling Agency. Don't forget. Nah, you won't forget. But there's a lot of good things about this that I don't think you pay attention to. I think some of the directing is actually really good too, with the shots that they give. There's this one scene where she runs down the stairs, and then the camera pans up, and it's just when Bianca walks out, and then you see the two of them there, and it's like, that could be Godfather. I mean, that scene. Maybe I'm overplaying,
Yeah.
but I mean, it could be.
No, the
that. It's so-
cinematography is amazing.
yeah.
It's so. Oh, I guess these like. I mean, even the sweeping landscapes that we keep talking about. It's so good. But my favorite scene is the flyers in the stairwell.
Right.
As they throw out the file, and you're going down like multiple floors, and all the people are grabbing at the flyers as they fall down. Like, that is a beautiful scene, and so cool, and so well shot. So it makes the like the scene with the paddle boats with the green screen in the back a little bit strange, because so much of this is like beautifully done, and that could have been like a 1940s or 30s film, but yeah, it's like that kind of shot at the prom there, like, hard to do without a drone, really. They didn't have those then.
So here's your shot that you talked about, where the camera slightly turns, and the flares are falling, and I wondered, as this is happening, like, did they have to reshoot this a bunch of times because people didn't catch them or whatever, because obviously you want people to catch them before they hit the ground, but Yeah, it was really that was really well done. So, this is the scene I was talking about where the two Shamrock,
Yes.
yeah, the Shamrock
Yes.
modeling picture. So, um, anyway, was there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up? Anything else that happened that we didn't talk about? We talked about the music. We talked about the actors. I was a little sad, obviously, that Heath Ledger passed away. It was a reminder as we're watching this. Also, that Daryl Chill Mitchell, who played the teacher, had a horrible accident that left him in a wheelchair
Oh.
after this movie.
Yeah.
So he was in Galaxy Quest. He was in this. He was on TV shows, and then he was in a horrible accident that left him paralyzed. And so there was that. There was this. There are some sad parts about this that have nothing to do with the movie, just what happened on later on. So nothing else that you can think of that you want to talk about before I get you to wrap it up. Oh wait, there was one more thing that I wanted to bring up, which I hope is okay, is that statue. So there's a statue
Oh yeah.
that actually exists, and it's called the Fremont Troll. And
Back,
they go
back over the falls.
right. So
Sorry.
it actually looks like this. This is how it exists right now in Seattle. So that I think is a neat opportunity to go get a picture of something if you're a super fan of this movie and you head out to Seattle. More so than the green screen of the paddle boats, this may be an opportunity for you to go get your picture taken with that. But I did think that was neat because it was very unique. But it's called the Fremont Troll. There you go. So before we get final thoughts on here again, I want to thank you for sitting through this movie, for coming back, for hanging out, and also again make one last plea that if you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up. Helps people find us. Please subscribe to Unplanned Downtime. We're bringing lots of good content to this channel, and so we would love for you to kind of to subscribe and be here for all the content we've got going on, including Disney Entertainment News Today, which drops every Tuesday, and there's a new episode up right now talking about Elemental, the new Pixar movie, and then also Jerry Bruckheimer's thoughts on a new Pirates. So check that out. And now's the time, Allison. This is why you're here. This is why you came back, is you want to tell the people and give them your honest opinion. Here it is. Are you ready? Are you ready? Would you recommend this movie?
Yes, 100%. If you want to know what living in the 90s was like, or like why my generation is the way they are, you should watch this movie. You can't get something that's more, I'll say the word again, iconic of the year 1999, period.
Come on. So anyway, I would, I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat, and there's a lot of stuff about Daryl and his other brother Daryl. It's the thing. For me, this was a movie that wasn't a big part of my life, but it was a Touchstone film. And again, I love all things Disney, and Disney had Touchstone and Hollywood Pictures and was trying to do something a little bit edgier with Touchstone, and now they own so many other properties that they can do that with. But this is an original movie. We inherited a bunch of rom-coms from Fox when they spent the $70 billion plus to get Fox on there, and we see them on Disney Plus. This is an original, like, Disney-owned property because it came from Touchstone, and I think it's great. I have not watched the one that came after it, the ABC Family one. I can only imagine that one's a train wreck. But this one stands up. Like, again, it's 23 years old as of this past March.
Oh gosh, I'm so old.
There you go.
Thanks. Thanks, Rob.
So yeah, it's 23 years old, and it still, I think, stands the test of time. I think when I look back at it, I was talking about the cinematography, I also think the acting is great. I think they did a great job with the acting. There are some movies you go back and look at it, and it's like, was it the directing or the acting that was bad here? All of it works. So
the script is great. The script is clever. It's sharp. It's witty.
Yep. Quotable.
Yeah, very quotable.
Yeah.
Which is funny because if I'll add one more piece of trivia, I looked up that actually Kate Hudson was like, they wanted her to play one of the sisters. I'm not sure which one. And her mother, Goldie Hawn, read the script and didn't like it and made her turn it down. So that's surprising because I think the script is actually really good.
Yeah. No, I understand. I just should we if they ever drop this other one on this ABC Family one on Disney Plus, should we review it? You think?
Yeah, we should do it.
Yeah. Some movies don't need a refresh. I don't think. I don't know that. What was the other one? Adventures in Babysitting needed a refresh. I think that was good the way it was. So. Let us know your thoughts. Hopefully you watched the movie, you did your homework. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If this movie meant a lot to you, if this movie was something that you kind of grew up with. And again, I know that Dawn was looking forward to this one. So hopefully, Dawn, you got to kind of live your dream here. We appreciate you watching. Thank you, Nico, Archfox, Steven, Dawn. And did I miss anybody else in the chat here? Disney Parks 2017 and SeaWorld San Diego fan. Tony Stank. Yeah, thank you guys all for and Bianca loves Disney. So thank you guys for all being in the chat, for being with us. One last thing is, if you don't know about it, we have a Patreon program, patreon.com/WDWNT. It's our WIGS program, the WDWNT Interglobe Society. We love our WIGS. Thank you guys so much for being WIGS members. And if you haven't, go check it out and find out how to become a member. Allison, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I appreciate it.
Let's do it again.
You pick the movie, you pick the time, just tell me and we'll make it happen. Cool?
Great. If everyone likes this video, I will be back ASAP.
Oh my gosh. Please,
hit the like.
Please hit thumbs up for Allison. She's the best. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night. Bye.